Welcome to the All Things Real Estate Podcast with our very own Josh Barker. With more than 20 years of experience and over 5,000 properties sold, Josh brings a unique perspective to the real estate market. Let's get started.
All right, so we are back. It's I don't know when we're supposed to do this, but it's the
Valentine's
day right now.
Day.
Yes, it is. It's Valentine's Day. So
That's right.
I'd just like to, on behalf of everybody here at Josh Barker Real Estate, I just want to say Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice.
Hope you have something good planned for your wife tonight. That'd
Yes.
be wonderful. Flowers,
Yes.
the cards, all that good
Or
stuff.
for your husband.
Yes.
Right?
Well, I'm talking about you for your bride. That's what I'm talking
Well, I
about.
thought you were talking to the audience.
No, the audience.
Of
Hey,
course.
do the right thing.
Of
Take
course,
care
I
of
got
your
her favorite
spouses.
dessert. I've got her favorite flower. It's taken care of.
Get it down.
Yes,
All right.
of course.
My wife says that she's not actually a huge fan of Valentine's Day.
My wife isn't either.
But I told her, I said, well, here's the problem with that is that 6 months from now, you'll have a girlfriend over and you'll say, and she'll ask me, what did you get your wife for Valentine's Day? And if I said nothing, then I'm that guy.
Yeah.
So you have to get something. It's just
Yeah.
the way it
It's-
works. So
It's, yes.
I love my wife 365 days of the year. But if we have a special day extra, sounds good to me.
There you go.
Knock it out.
There you go.
Okay. So, well, we've had some changes since the last time you were here. I think last month we had a guest.
Yeah, I think Dan Metz, wasn't it?
That's right. Dan was here. Yep.
Dan the man.
Dan the man, real estate extraordinaire. So, and he definitely was providing some really good information. And now today, for those listeners, and this won't be out for a few days, but the Federal Reserve just came out today, this morning, and I guess the Federal Reserve reports on this, but it was the core inflation numbers. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a couple of them down just so I get them right. But right now they came out at 6.4% year over year inflation.
Which is down because they were reporting in the 8s, and some sources said no, 11s.
Right.
But we're gonna say 8s, but the truth is it's 11s.
Yeah.
So that's moving in the right direction.
It is. However, the stock market didn't respond all that well because the projection was that it was supposed to be around 6.2, and it came in at 6.4. So it's like wonk, 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 wonk.
Yeah.
Not a huge deal. I think everybody understands inflation is coming down, but it just wasn't quite meeting the expectation. I think probably what they're concerned about is whether or not the Fed will raise interest rates again. Obviously, the next meeting they have. One more number I'll get out is that month over month was 0.5%, and it was projected to be 0.4. And so, month over month, it did actually still go up as well. So I think there's some headwind there on terms of inflation still. The Fed's response will be to likely raise the interest rates 0.25% the next time they meet, is I think what most people are projecting. And that puts a little bit of pressure on the mortgage rate too.
You know what's funny is when you're saying all that,
Yeah.
what I was hearing was that it's the Eagles by 1.5 and the over/under is 50.5. Yeah, they blew both of those too.
They blew
From the
both
people, the people who brought you the recession numbers, we've got projections for the Super Bowl. You know how much money I lost?
Exactly.
So these projections, you gotta have to take them like that's the whole thing. Is like we were projecting 6.4, but it came in at 6.2, so the stock market tanked. Like,
Right.
wow,
Right.
That shows you what exactly the stock market's built on.
Well, it's speculation, opinion. Well, it was a surprise.
Emotion.
I think. Yeah, I think they were hopeful because if inflation was going down and meeting
it did.
expectation, I did. You're right.
And
did.
it almost hit the number. That's what's crazy is it went down a lot.
But it wasn't enough.
Exactly.
I'm not happy with that.
You missed it by a 0.1.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
All right, fine. We'll blow past that one. So Federal Reserve likely will raise their interest rate 0.25% the next time they meet. Based on that information, which I still don't think is all that bad.
No,
to your point,
it's
I
moving
think
in the right direction.
totally agree. So, all right, another one I'll throw at you. Home inventory, 540 homes for sale.
That's not a lot.
It's not a lot,
It's not
right?
a lot at all.
I know. It's pretty crazy. I mean, our absorption rate was climbing. Remember, it was climbing up into almost a neutral market. It didn't quite get there, but it was like right on the edge.
But it was consistently walking the ladder.
It was.
Because it was, when you and I first started this, it was either high 1s or low 2s, which is insane.
Yeah.
That's a total seller's market.
Yeah, you're right.
And it slowly walked up. It went past 3. It went into the neutral market.
Yep.
I'm just thinking Star Trek, the neutral zone. Then the Klingons came in and it walked up there. And so we're like, oh, it's going to be a buyer's market.
Yeah.
And it just turned right back around and came right back down
It
into
did.
what a seller's market is.
Yeah, it's technically inside of a seller's market. If you take the market as a whole segment, of course, every price point produces differently, and the results are going to vary based on the price point. But collectively, right now, we're still in what we consider a seller's market, and that would be anything from 0 to 3 months supply of homes. And right now, we're definitely in that range. We're in the 2s right now, for those who are wondering. So in any case, that inventory thing is interesting. It's down about 20% year over year. New listings last month that came to market. It's interesting because we have to watch forward now, like spring and summer. It's like, are we going to see sellers that, are in a position where they really want to sell, where they need to get it sold for a number of reasons? What's going to bring that inventory to the market, I think, is a big question for a lot of people right now. Your thoughts?
Well, we have two huge winds attacking each other. We have the tailwind that is, for Reading, is lack of supply. Mm-hmm. We have super low supply. That is a major tailwind, right? For value, or for holding value, or keeping it from dropping too much. Yeah. If there's nothing for sale, I mean, this is supply and demand, right?
Right.
But we have a major headwind in interest rates.
That's right.
And even though they're coming down, I mean, they shot up so crazy. We went I think in a 90-day period, we went from 2.875 to almost 8% in 1 quarter.
Yeah.
Right. A 90-day, which is crazy.
Yeah. Shut the market down. I mean, it definitely slowed things down.
Major headwind. And so that's come down a little bit, right? We're now you said mid sixes. We're in the low sixes.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, we were like 6.125, and right now we're just over 6.5. If you wanted to buy your rate down,
you probably could have gotten the fives, although I wouldn't have done that. But I mean, I still think interest rates. I think we're not supposed to get political, but I think as we get close to an election, I think the powers that be are going to do everything they can to cook the books.
Yeah.
And so I think that interest rates are going to get really good. This just in,
Yep.
So I expect that. So that's why we go back to that thing we talked about you marry the house and you date the interest rate. If you find a home you really like, what's going to happen is by the time those interest rates come down, that house is going to have seen the appreciation of it as well. It's going to hit faster than the interest rate comes down.
Interesting.
The second the interest rate starts to come down, it's the second the signals are there where people are like, hey, we're not in a recession anymore. Things are starting to pick up.
Yep.
It's speculation is going to kick back in,
right,
and the housing prices are going to start ramping up faster than the interest rate comes down.
Sure.
So if you can lock in your home price at the lowest point, have to deal with that poor interest rate for a little bit, and then 2 years later you're refinancing in the high 3s or low 4s.
Yeah.
You've gotten the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
If you wait until the interest rates like we did before, because that's what, if you think about when you saw the market drive up in 19, 20, 21, what you're seeing houses go up as interest rates are coming down.
Right.
And in a although they're directly inverse, the housing prices were going up faster. Right.
Yeah. Well, and it's the replenishment rate is an issue too, right? So I mean, we have low inventory right now, and then the replenishment rate is low. And when you think about that, it's like, okay, you and I were talking about this before we started, but it's going to take like 6 months on the optimistic side.
Minimum.
Yeah, to produce a home to make available to the marketplace. Right now we have one major home builder in town that's, still putting sticks up at a pretty meaningful number. There's a collection of smaller home builders, local people that we're obviously rooting for all the time. And they're doing it. I mean, they're producing product, but they're not running at the volume that larger builder is. And I think they're probably being smart about it. They're just like, we don't want to be sitting in a situation where we're sitting on homes that, that we can't get sold for the prices we need to sell them at. So I'm hearing some of that from them. Any thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things that I think about is that big builder that we're talking about. It's a national level builder.
Yep.
They are not the people that run that company have done it for quite some time. They're insanely successful, and they have looked at the market and said, we need to build a bunch of homes.
Yeah.
So they're either really wrong or they are on a continued path of success, which that's their track record of saying, hey, look, this too shall pass.
Yep.
This interest rate issue will go, but what won't go away is the lack of supply.
You're right. I mean, if you look here in our marketplace here, I was just pulling up these numbers, and these are all the census stuff that got done in 2021. 2021. And population they came in at is 182,000, of which there's 72,000 units. And 64% of those are owner occupied. So when you think about it, you're like, to your point, I mean, we have a pretty big shortage in housing. I think we're over over 5 million short now. I think through some legal or illegal, it doesn't matter, immigration that's coming in. We're over probably 2 million people in the last, 2 years? I don't know. I mean,
depends which channel you watch.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
It's either 2 million or 2,200 billion.
But I think everybody collectively would agree that that's going to put some demand on housing.
Yes.
And so you have that's a tailwind in the sense that, and a tailwind to value. in the sense that, when you have short inventory,
that's demand.
Growing demand, that's a good thing. I think still today, most markets across the country are experiencing challenges with value because of the affordability issue. Most people are using credit in order to purchase. And when interest rates go up, the cost for credit also goes up. And so what you qualify for a loan amount goes down. And we've talked about it before, but people go, well, I've seen rates at 17%. It's like, that's true. However, the price of those properties at that time were much lower. And so with interest rates going up, like you said earlier in the podcast, as quickly as they have, it's still that's a pretty challenging thing for affordability.
Yeah.
And affordability right now, I think it's tagged at around 30% or so. There's like 28 to 30%, let's say.
Is that what the lender uses? You mean for like what you can afford?
Right.
30% of your income?
Exactly. I think in those reports of your gross taxable income annually at 28 to 30% is what they figure makes homes affordable. And, if you look back 2 years ago, that was the case, and it was because the interest rates were so low. Mm-hmm. And so the affordability using credit was lining up. But today with rates being at 6.5% and values of homes haven't come down as far as they need to compensate for that, that's kind of where things are at today.
I was thinking about you also have a number on what the average income is. And I think if you divide that by the 30%, you get the affordability at about $220,000, which is quite a ways away from what the median price home, right? Well, Am I doing my math right?
Yeah, I did do this actually. And again, this is everything that's coming from the census. So I'm not claiming it's accurate. It's just what we have, but it said that 62,000 was that average household income in 2021.
Is that Shasta County, or is that
Shasta County in the entire county? And I speculate that obviously it's a little bit higher with wage inflation and things like that over the last year, but not, let's say it's up by 10%. That would still only put it at 68,000 for the year.
Yeah, but still, statistics are a funny thing, right? Like the median, what's the average score on that test? A 62. How many people got a 62? Nobody. What you got was 80 people that got a 40, and 20 people that got a 99,
right?
And that's what you're seeing. You have the haves and the have-nots. The income-wise, there is a huge disparity, a gap.
There is
minimum wage, and then the people that earn dramatically more than that.
It's a great point, because when you look at that number, because people are purchasing homes, probably going to skew to the higher side of that scale, obviously, and that's where and that's kind of what we were hoping for. I mean, to have a really strong economy, you want to have people have savings. And they're taking that in savings and they're investing. And the first place that most people start to invest is in themselves, in their home. Mm-hmm. They make that investment into buying a property that they're going to live in, since you're either going to be paying rent or you're going to be paying a mortgage. And, if you're going to be paying for living either way, you might as well be accumulating some assets along the way, right?
Yes.
But I think you're right. I think it's going to be interesting to see. But the rate right now at 6.5 still puts some pressure on value. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're like, how could you deny it? So the rental market for a minute. Talking recently with some property managers up and down the state, and then several here locally. The number that's coming up a lot is a vacancy rate around 8%.
And what's a healthy market?
Well, last year it was probably averaging around 4%.
Which is white hot.
What
is healthy? Just like you said.
Yeah, that's a good point. I bet you it's probably healthy right now.
I was going to say 8% doesn't sound unhealthy to me.
It doesn't. 8% sounds like rents are likely not increasing anymore.
And I think people got ridiculous. I heard some rents. We rented out our rental and got told how we just did not rent it out for enough, right?
Well, you're supposed to rent everything out for more than your mortgage. You know what I mean? So like, how much should I ask for it? Well, what's your mortgage?
Fair enough.
So,
but I would love to even go down the road on that discussion for a second.
Yeah.
But we don't have to. I don't want to get sidetracked.
We might agree when we get to the end of that one.
Well, because, if you're buying it, okay, we are going to go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, hey, look, I'm buying a rental. Why would you have a rental? Obviously it's an investment portal.
Sure.
It's different from, my personal home, because I don't want to, I want to live here, so this is different. There's emotion involved, right?
Yeah.
But if I have a rental unit, it should be looked at like an investment vessel.
Absolutely.
So now you're comparing it to something like a retirement account, and which is usually in stocks and funds, right? Okay. So you say, well, rent it out for more than your mortgage. Well, that's ideal.
I mean, it may not be reality, because
that's perfect.
It doesn't. What's your mortgage, right?
It sounds a lot like buy low, sell high.
Sure. Who
right?
can argue with that?
Yeah. I do it every day. Okay. So, but if you're saying you were going to put money in a retirement because it was going to appreciate over time. You didn't, unless you're like, no, I only buy dividend paying stocks, or I only buy municipal bonds that are taxed, something like that. You were putting money into something that wasn't giving you anything back, because over time it was going to grow.
Right.
So if you did have a mortgage where you said, hey, my mortgage is $1,700 and my rent is $1,100. So I'm upside down $600, $7,200 a year. Well, if you put money into the stock market, and we won't get into like your employer does matching funds, but what are you upside down? And in the stock market, which we just had one of the top 5 worst years ever in the stock market, which it lost on average 30%.
Yep.
Right. How do you not look at that like that's an investment? How do you not look at that like, yes, my mortgage is locked in at, did I say 1,700?
Yeah.
Okay. Fast forward 7 years from now, what is your rent now? And your mortgage should be still at 1,700 unless interest rates dropped dramatically
and you refinance out of it.
And hopefully you didn't refinance and cash out and go buy a Corvette and pretend like somehow that's part of that. No, that's just like you cashing out stock and buying a Corvette. If you did refinance, you could refinance for less for what you owed. You didn't have to pull out every penny, because that's now that, unless you're buying another, so on. So I would say that idea that like your rent should cover your mortgage sounds good. But in the last couple of years, I've seen a lot of people do that. And that's where I think these rents came that were like, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I kind of
2,100 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Starview Estates.
Well, because of the mortgage.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So and now they're like, I have a vacancy.
Right. Because it's kind of a running joke with property managers that, you know, they know what the fair market rent is for that 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, and let's say it's hypothetically $1,800 a month, but the person has a mortgage at $2,000.
Yeah.
So the property manager says, well, the rental rate for this right now should be around $1,800. Well, I need $2,100 because that's my mortgage. And it's kind of the ongoing joke. It's like, you know, it doesn't really matter what your mortgage is. It matters what the fair market is for rent, period.
Exactly.
If you can't find a tenant, it's going to sit vacant, right? Yep. So there's pressure. Here's the good news. For those who are out there that are looking at rentals as an, you know, what your option is at this point, you know, the rental rates are coming down a little bit. As the vacancy rate has climbed, and it's likely not going to see rental rates climbing in terms of how much it is per month. It's probably not going to go up too much in the short term. Now, if you're sitting in a unit right now that's under rent, you know, which some people are, and the landlord might incrementally raise it as a result because it's below rent now, that's possible. But as a whole, there's some pressure there. VRBO is the same thing. Have you seen that with the vacation rental market? It's starting to soften. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in there.
It's the same concept. You know, people are tightening their belts. Inflation is going to hit across the board. Yeah. Right. And so the vacation, everything should see. That's the whole idea of raising the interest rate. Everything should start to see a slowing down to try to calm the economy. Yep. So, you know, it hurts when it's eggs and cheese and bread that's getting hit, but it's also, it's meant to stop brand new truck purchases. Yeah. Guilty. Big TV, you know, vacation. It's meant to slow that down, right? So that, you know, the spend catches up. Sure. So it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because right now, but if you look macro and some of the policy changes, like, you know, they did some quantitative tightening. And for our listeners, are like, okay, what the heck is that word? It's just essentially, you know, what the Federal Reserve will issue a lot of bonds. And when those bonds come back, once they reach maturity, they have a choice. They can take the money they just received back and go buy more bonds or sell more bonds again, or provide liquidity to the market, or they can just essentially destroy the cash. Federal Reserve doesn't have to hold cash. They print it. So when they collect cash, they just destroy it. And right now they're tightening the money supply. And that's going to have an impact on people having access to credit. And so, you know, that's to your point, you're seeing these effects of a monetary policy that's tightening. You're seeing interest rates going up. And I think Warren Buffett said it best when he described interest rates as gravity to a value of an asset. Mm-hmm. So as you turn up the interest rate and it rises, it actually has a greater pull on value of assets and really across a lot of different markets. So like you talked about the stock market, obviously it's gonna show up there. It's showing up in the housing market now with interest rates going up. And there's a lot of other investment classes where it's doing the same thing.
You know what's funny is I'm not an economist, but I play one on TV. I'm not an economist, but I love to listen to some of this stuff. And sometimes the logic makes sense to me, and other times I'm kind of thrown, you know. And I was reading like when inflation rates are high and interest rates go up, it was like collectible assets. It was like collector cars, wine, art. And I thought, what you're really saying is the wealthy, the lower classes get hit. They have no options, right? They get hit. The stock market gets hit. And so I just thought about that idea of, so basically wherever the interest rate really only affects the working class and the lower working class, it doesn't affect the higher end class.
Not at the same level.
You know what I mean? Not at the same level.
No.
And so one of the things that we talk about that because we're talking about real estate in general, we try to get specific about the Reading market, but within the market, there are, if you're a renter, you should, if you can afford to buy, you should buy. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Housing is not going to get cheaper. When we say cheaper, I don't mean, hey, that house was listed for $365 last year and now it's listed for $352. That effectively doesn't matter in the scheme of things.
Right.
That $13,000 doesn't even exist.
Right.
We're talking about houses that were at $365 and now they're at $280. That's
significant.
That's significant. We're not going to, in my opinion, we're not going to see that.
Yeah.
We're not going to see that because we've taken a major hit on interest rates. The market has leveled out over a year. It might fluctuate, especially the other thing you brought it up when you were talking about the, what was the rate that you gave? You gave something about the rate of homes and you kind of hinted that there are segments in the market that are getting hit much differently.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Where the demand is at.
The houses that were listed at $795 that are now on their second price reduction and they're at $740. You see that. The houses that were listed at $295, I would argue, I bet you that there are no price reductions unless they were a $210,000 house listed at $295. The lower end is the part that can't, it's not easy to replace.
It's more compact.
It is.
Yeah. So you'll see larger reductions in value as the price goes up. And then as you get down into the lower price point, because the demand, again, is so much higher in the lower price point, because that's where a lot of people can afford. They're coming down. They've come down some, but not nearly as much as the higher part of the market has.
So back to that, if you are in the lower end and you're renting and you can afford a mortgage, buy the house, marry the house, date the interest rate. And when interest rates will get reduced, because I haven't met anybody that doesn't think in the next 2 to 3 years, interest rates won't come down even more.
Right.
I don't know anybody that doesn't do that. So you can refinance. But like we said at the beginning of the show, the housing market will climb faster than the interest rates will come down, because as soon as the signals are there, letting all the investors, they'll jump back in hard. Yeah. So in my opinion, we've seen the correction. Have we seen the correction at the high end? Probably not. It's probably not done. Yeah. The people there were a lot of houses that were like $850, $795. And I looked at them and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I want. Like, good luck,
Well, you're probably a hair more optimistic on that than I am, to be very transparent with you, because I see the interest rates having a pretty significant headwind to value right now. Yes. And so that's, for me, I'm looking at it going, if interest rates drop down to like 5 3/4, home values stabilize. But I think there is this disparity of about 7 to 10% right now between what the median buyer can afford and what the median home is selling for. And I see that number being in existence today. Now, how we bridge that gap, there's multiple ways to do it. You could have the rates going down and then value doesn't change. You could have values coming down, or you could have a combination of both. But once the reason why I'm looking at it that way is because I assume that's when volume can pick back up again. And you need volume in the marketplace. I mean, right now, the volume hit that we've had, it really only affects lenders and real estate agents. That's not a big deal. But part of the volume issue is that people need to be able to have options. And they need to be able to afford those options. I mean, if you want to get someone to move, they have to have a reason to. They need to be able to see something they would want to move to. You know what I mean? Yep. And so, having the inventory grow will actually spur more transactions also. So it's going to be an interesting year, man, and probably one of the more exciting ones, because when the market shifted last time in like 07, 08, and, we hit the financial crisis sometime, I think, in 08. And I remember at the time where it was like, we already knew this whole thing was going one direction. You know what I mean? It was there was no question at all. It was like, this is the direction it's going.
We've been drinking all night. We're in a casino. It was 3 a.m.
We know what the next day is going to feel like, right?
Yeah, this is.
And it was like every day was Groundhog's Day, every day. And selling real estate in that environment. And having to sell a house if you're a property owner in that environment was very stressful. Because there was a high level of emotion. A lot of people were losing money, everything else. This one's totally different. This one's more like, we know there's going to be either a slight recession, which by the way has dropped down to a likelihood of 55% according to Kiplinger. We'll see if it happens or not. Most people are leaning towards yes, but we'll see. But you see this now, and it's like we all feel like it's coming, but we don't really think. I don't know if there's very many people that think it's going to be very bad. You know what I mean? You see the stuff on the media and stuff like that. And of course, they're there to sell stories and things like that. But when you look at the actual data for supply relative to demand right now, those numbers look pretty healthy.
Yeah. So the optimism comes from my optimism is based on the lower end of the local market.
Yeah.
It's not based on the higher end of the major cities. Those I think are going to tank.
Yeah.
I think that's what I mean. Like if you look at this, like the stock market tanks, but at the same time, there are stocks that go up, and there's a time when the stock market's total bull run and there's companies filing bankruptcy. Sure. So I look at the lower end, let's say under $360,000 in Redding, and I say, can you replenish supply?
No,
you can't. So it'll fluctuate a little bit, even 7%.
Yeah.
If you said, hey,
but it's all based on affordability. It's not on supply and demand.
And that's why I said, we're talking to renters.
I totally agree.
If you're talking about people that are thinking about flipping homes and they want, they're going to buy single family homes as investments, that's a very different conversation. It's very, very different. Right. So I still believe in this lower end. And I think it's because of supply, the lack of supply, and how difficult it is to replenish supply.
Oh, yeah.
Interest rates can come down tomorrow. As soon as, the two guys run for president and they start pistol whipping each other, whoever's got the strings on the Fed, will have interest rates lowered.
Yeah.
And whoever's got the strings in the FBI will make sure what we see and read on Twitter, right? So it's like, they will
we're going way deep now.
Yeah, they will do what they do, right? So I'm optimistic. And the other side of it is I say, okay, so let's talk to the higher end. They go, okay, cool. I'm not a first time buyer.
3 minutes, Marcus. All right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay. 3 minutes. Tell me your story.
You want me to finish this one?
Please, go for it.
Okay, so we were off to hammer. I said, I want to tell a little story about Three Little Pigs, right?
Oh, Three Little Pigs.
Yeah.
Tell us the story. Tell the listeners a story of Three Little Pigs.
There were three little pigs, right? And their mom, their financial planner, the puppy, Society, the puppy, let's see who gets that movie reference. They said, hey, look, you need to take this money, you need to invest in it. And the first little pig invested in crypto.
Oh.
Yeah, it was doing great. And then, then came along Logan Paul and his army, and they destroyed crypto. And let's see how they're doing. They've got 20 cents in the dollar. Then the second little pig put all his money in the stock market because the bull run was so great.
So good.
In the last year, like I said, top 5 worst years ever for the stock market. It lost 30% value.
Hey, I've got friends that are brokers, man. Let's not beat them up too bad, okay?
Hey, it's not their fault. They're not the ones that said, 93 PE ratio, that sounds valuable.
I'm going to tell them to make sure they turn this off
I'd like
within
to
the last
invest,
4 minutes.
Right? And the third little pig bought a house. So in the last year, the third little pig says, oh man, am I down a whole 8%?
That's an excellent point.
And the other two little pigs knifed him in an alley because they had lost everything. So that's
so good.
Little pigs.
That's the Three Little Pigs.
So we're all eating ham.
Oh, so we're all eating.
There you go. That's my story.
Oh, what a treat, buddy. Well, I would say that to summarize this thing right now, I would say that, okay, relax. I think the point is it's not really all that bad. I mean, the values have come down a little bit, and a lot of that's because of interest rates. I think everybody can respect that. We do have some headwinds with some higher interest rate environments probably in the short term, which will have some consistent pressure on value because of the affordability. But when you look at supply and demand right now, all of those factors are very healthy.
Yeah.
We're not oversupplied for the market. Valuations are strong because of the demand that's still there. And people, and this is one of the greatest things I like about the market right now, people are purchasing properties right now with fixed mortgages for the most part. And that means that if they could afford the payment today, they're most likely to be able to afford it going into the future. And that's a good thing. So, all right. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time with us today. As always, it's always
my pleasure.
Fun. I hope that their audience enjoyed the conversation with you as much as I do. And we'll catch up with you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
If you're enjoying the All Things Real Estate podcast, please feel free to subscribe, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.